Welcome back, everyone, to a Freaky Tales podcast, and I'm your host, Tony the Wizard, and to my left, my co-host, Marvelous Inc. But before I introduce my very special guest, who absolutely needs no introduction, I just want to thank everybody for being patient with us. Once again, when you update your system, you just have to get the bugs out, and that's what happened. And thank you, everybody, for being very, very patient. Everybody in the live chat, everybody who decides not to be on the live chat, everybody who liked, subscribed, commented, anybody who disliked, it doesn't matter as long as you guys are still watching. But other than that, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. And please allow me to introduce retired detective Gil Carrillo. ¿Cómo estás?
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me down to your show.
You know what? I'm so glad that you're here. I apologize for the technical difficulties that we were experiencing, but you know what? We're good. We're good to go.
Brother, it is what it is. Ain't nothing special. I ain't nobody special. Technical difficulties happen. You adapt and move on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Marvelous, how you feeling today?
I'm good, bro.
Yeah?
It was a pleasure being on the show.
Absolutely. And Gil, really quick, how was the drive coming over here? Was it far?
It was a distant drive for me, not as far as some people that had to come from Riverside County, but it wasn't bad until I got to Blockade. There was an accident on 105, and so got off the freeway, took some side streets for a while, then jumped back on over to 710, and here I am.
Here you are. Just like we had promised everybody here on Freaky Tales. You know, since this show had began, when the Night Stalker documentary came out and I saw you on there, believe me, I had been messaging you on Facebook for the longest time, and I was like, why doesn't this guy read my messages? And it wasn't until we talked, you were like, I'm not like, you know, what is it, phone or, no, social media savvy.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, okay, no wonder, I get it, cool. But it was my last episode that somebody actually called and said, have you tried to get Gil Carrillo? And I said, he won't answer my messages, man. I said, I would love to have him on here. That was on a Friday. On Monday, somebody contacted me named Raul Carrillo. And he said, hey, man, you know what? I can't promise you anything. And we were messaging back and forth. And he says, but I can reach out to him. I got his number. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath, bro, because he won't even read my messages. He calls me and goes, hey, man, you know, shoot me your number. He said he'll call you. And I was like, no way, bro. You serious? And then you called. We talked for about 30, 35 minutes, and it was all love.
That's it. I'm not a social media buff, and this was all new to me. Once that documentary dropped, the director called me up and he said it's going to drop tonight, and enjoy the ride. That's all he said. I had no idea what he was talking about. All of a sudden, I'm getting messages from all around the world. Mm-hmm. And Facebook, people trying to get me on Facebook, asking me to be their friend. Before this thing dropped, I wouldn't even take on friends because of the line of business I was in, not knowing who's who in the zoo. Yeah. I wouldn't take on friends. I don't care if they were my kids' friends. You know, I don't know where they hang or what they do. But then when this thing dropped and I started getting literally hundreds of requests a day. And I told the wife, and I'm going to look them all up individually. And unless there's a reason specifically why not, I'm going to take them on as friends. I don't care who they are. Because I don't want anybody to think I'm arrogant, that I'm better than anybody else, or I'm an a-hole. And I didn't want that. So that's what I did. And then pretty soon they started, well, you know, you got to get on Instagram. And I can't keep up with it. You know, people, you know, superstars, you know, George Lopez, you know, he's got somebody that does his Instagram stuff. He handles his social media. I don't have anybody, so it's hard to keep up. And I even had a very nice friend, a lady friend, nothing special, just I've watched her grow for years. And I got a message from her the other day and asking, what's wrong? Are you pissed off at me? You haven't returned any of my messages, you haven't returned this. And I apologized to her. If I'm overlooking something, I'm looking, I just can't get to everybody, and I try. And I apologize for missing you so long.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. Now, I got in contact with you. We talked a little bit on Instagram. Now we got each other's numbers, so it's all love. I wanted to jump right into it, and for people that may not know or possibly had not seen the documentary, you gave a little bit of your background. And before we get to, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, I want to talk just a little bit about you as far as, like, where did you grow up at? And can you give us a little picture of your family? What was going on in your childhood?
Well, I started out 94th and Avalon in L.A. My sisters, I had, at that time when I was living there in 94th, I had four older sisters that had all gone to school, Gompers High School or junior high, I don't even know what it was, but I remember Gompers. I went to 99th Street School, so I started. And then when I was 5 years old, my dad moved to Pico. Then it was just Pico. It wasn't even Pico Rivera. It was just Pico. Moved to Pico, 3-bedroom house, 7 kids later, 1 toilet. The back of the garage was always good.
Yeah.
And so went to school there, and then I started growing up a little bit and started hanging around the block. And there was, we were all friends. We were young, we were naive, and started getting into a little bit of trouble, not much. And there was a cop that used to come around all the time, and his name was Al Arias. And he was a good guy, and he'd put us up in the car, pat us down, and do everything. What I thought was really cool, I didn't realize then because I wasn't a cop, it was good police work. He just kept open communications, treated us right. Yes. I won't mention another guy who used to come around, and you'd see him, and he'd say, "Hey, that's who it is," and you'd run because he'd smack the shit out if you didn't give him, where do you live? Over there, bam, okay, 5320, you gave him everything, and you got the respect. If you had you knew what the drill was, but the key was run. Yeah. Don't let him get to you to start asking you questions. And so when I was a senior in high school, I was going to be the first one that didn't graduate, and I was failing English, and the teacher finally told me, she says, "Look, I'll give you a D if you just write a term paper. Wow. And you'll graduate." So that cop jammed me. I said, "Hey, you always try to help us out. You said you help me out. Would you help me write a paper? And I want to write about cops." And he did. And so it was good. I went into the Army at age 17, went to Vietnam. I just turned 18, went to Vietnam 2 months later. Was a year in combat over there, come back. And when I came out, when I finally got out of the service, I had 3 goals in life. One was to go to college, because at that time I thought only rich white people went to college, and that wasn't, I found out naively that wasn't the case. 2, I wanted to become a cop, because I wanted to give back what that cop gave to me, and that was my life. Yeah. Because to this day, all the guys that stood back in the block are either dead or in prison. And a 3rd one was I wanted to hook up with my ex-girlfriend, who wrote me a Dear John, When I was in Vietnam, she wrote me and broke my heart. She broke up. Yeah, you're too far away. I don't know. So it was over. So I wanted to get out. I wanted to get her eaten out of the palm of my hand, so I could get her and break it off in her, and that way I could watch her suffer. I wanted revenge. Oh. I just, that was nasty. So I got out. I started college immediately. That's why I knew I was mature, because when I got my transcripts from high school, I was embarrassed. I obviously thought D stood for damn good, and F was fabulous. Yeah, so I went, and that started college. I obviously became a cop. That was goal number 2. Goal number 3, I got out of the service in June of 1970. I had her eaten out of the palm of my hand by September of 70. December 26, 1970, booyah, we got married. Wow. and we just had our 51st wedding anniversary this last December. So we're still hooked up. So that's 2 out of 3. Awesome. I didn't get the third one. And
there's something I wanted to touch on, because watching the documentary, you had said that, if I'm correct, your parents had signed you up for the military.
Yeah, they had to sign. They had to co-sign. You could go in at 18 or be drafted or volunteer, but I was only 17, so I needed parents' consent. So they signed for me to go in.
So you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you went there, this is Vietnam. Obviously, we weren't there. Half of the audience probably wasn't there. But can you kind of give us a picture of possibly what you saw when you went into combat?
It's impossible to describe, really, because I flew for my whole time when I was there. I was a crew chief on a helicopter, and the first 6-7 months, my job was to, when I'm up in the air, you got a M60 machine gun, a 60 mounted on the side. You go in, you resupply, you insert troops, you extract troops, and you medevac. And sometimes you have to go into what we called hover holds. Yeah. Not a wide opening. I mean, you're hanging out, people are shooting at you, you're sitting duck, people are shooting, you're shooting back. But I never saw anybody that I was shooting at. You'd see muzzle flashes, that's it. So you'd never see a body. One time, we were, this Agent Orange that you hear about in the news sometimes, we had a bladder, a big bladder on a helicopter with pipes coming out the sides, and we're spraying rice fields. We're killing their rice, because the rice was used to feed North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong. So we're killing their food supply. And as we're doing this, one Viet Cong guy jumped up out of the rice paddy, and he started shooting, hit the helicopter 4 times before I had reacted and hit him, and I saw him go down. Oh, wow. That's the first and only individual that I ever saw that I hit, that I saw him flip and go down. And we pulled up, because as soon as we get shot at right there, we pull up and out, and gunships, we just tell them, hey, here it is. We throw smoke right away, and they see it, and the gunships come in and destroy everything. And I just said, I'm tired of running, I want to go to gunnies. So I went to gunships, and for the last 5 months that I was there, I flew on gunships. Now there, I'm still a crew chief, and you're the eyes and the ears of the backside of the helicopter, everything. You make sure you have all the ammo, all the bullets, all the rockets, everything we need on there, and you're part of a 4-man crew. And you go out, and I had guns on each side of the helicopter that shot 4,000 rounds a minute, miniguns. I had rocket pods out there. It was nothing but. Now your job is purely attack. You fly security for the other helicopters. If anything happens, you're just attacked. Sometimes they'd have you attack. If there's no helicopters around, they say, hey, we know we got concentrated here, go in and shoot them up, and that's what we did.
Well, now, when you were shooting and you were serving in the military, how old were you at that time?
I was only 18.
Wow.
I turned 18 November 29th. 2 months later, I'm in Vietnam. So being away, you just imagine the Latino community sitting at home eating frijoles, arroz con tortillas y harina, and over there, you ain't got that stuff, brother.
And then you get a letter.
Yeah, and then I get a letter. Don't break my heart again. Yeah.
Okay. So,
but I want to say,
yes,
she is the glue that has kept us married for 51 years.
Awesome. That's a beautiful thing. So, how many years total did you serve before you came home and then you started going to college?
I served for 3 years, and I started going to college right away. I got out in June of '70 and started summer session right away as soon as I got out.
Okay. And at what point in your life, and how old were you when you said, you know what, I want to become a cop?
Well, I knew it. That's what my goal was. When I started college, I started taking law enforcement classes already. Matter of fact, I was different. I wanted to do good. Yes. I matured. I wanted A's. And at that time, the local assemblyman, I don't know how they do this, my parents got a letter at the house, congratulations, your son's on the dean's list, or whatever they used to call it, because I was getting straight A's. Yes. And my mom looked at it and she goes, Mijo, are you cheating? I said, no, Mom, it's a new me. It's what I want. And so I got out, when I got out of the service, I was 20 years old, and I started working towards my goal of becoming a cop. And October 1st of 1971, I swore in at the age of 21 as a deputy sheriff.
Because I don't know how law enforcement works, and that's why I'm so thankful that you're here, that you could fill us in. So you became a cop first, and then obviously you went on to be a detective. How long were you a cop before a detective?
Okay. Well, just so your viewers understand, and so
Yes.
you understand, the day you swear in the academy, you become what you call a cop.
Okay.
You're all cops. And I'll speak only of the sheriff's department.
Yes.
Versus LAPD. LAPD graduates, and their people go straight from the academy to a patrol car with a partner. You know, they don't go out there by themselves, so they stick them with a training officer. Deputies, 99% of them go directly into, 99% either go into the custody division, go into jails, they go to drive buses, or they go to drive, they work the railroad lines, you know. And so you do that. And that normally takes, you have to stay in custody. I stood in custody 2.5 years.
Okay.
So in 1974, I transferred to patrol. So I went to East LA Patrol, where I spent a total of about 7 years there. Okay. During that time, investigative work came about, and I started doing, first they assigned me to a detective bureau just to hone me up because they knew that I was going. Yeah. And then I got called into homicide bureau, which normally takes 15 years minimum to get into with the sheriff's department.
Oh, wow.
And I did it in 9.5. Wow. And they wanted my gang expertise. They were starting a gang homicide crew. Yeah. So I got to go up, and I spent 21 years as an investigator working murders.
Wow. Now, before 1985, you know, the whole Richard Ramirez thing, what was it that you were seeing as far as, you know, I mean, I guess, because I'm not a cop, he's not a cop, so we're trying to get a picture. You know, was there a lot of gang killings? Was there a lot of murders as far as before the whole Richard Ramirez thing? Was that?
There was an awful lot of murders. 1980, probably about 1981 through 84, an awful lot of murders, a lot of gang murders. That's why they started the gang homicide team. Because what was happening was we have, let's say, 90 investigators. Let's make it easy, 100. Let's say 100 homicide investigators working there. So today, you work off a rotation. You know it's weekend, so you got 6 teams on call for the weekend. First murder comes in. It could be an O.J. Simpson case, or it could be a transient, or it could be a gang member. But there were more gang member murders. So what guys were doing, they'd go out to a gang murder, and when you go to a gang murder, for the most part, it's the same thing. You see blood, you see paramedic debris, maybe a couple of casings, and that's it. And nobody wants to talk to you. Yeah. So the guys were going out there, they'd do their crime scene, try to talk to people, try to talk to anybody to talk to them. Nothing going, okay, well, put it away, give me my next case. Hoping that next case would be something a little more that you could sink your teeth into.
Yeah.
So they started this gang team, and they called me up because they realized, hey, your next case just can be another gang case. Because now they had 14 investigators that did nothing but gang-related murders. Mm-hmm. So you may as well work this one as hard as you can, work it to the bone, because your next one's going to be just another gang murder. And gang members were high back in the mid-'70s. L.A. County was gang capital of the U.S. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, so it was a big deal, and it worked. I did nothing but gang murders until 1984. I got there March 23rd of 84. March 23rd of 1981. March of 84.
Okay.
I was asked to go to a regular team. They pulled me out of gangs, and they just said, essentially, we're wasting your talent doing gang murder. We want you to come up and work regulars. So that's what I did.
Do you a quick question? Sorry. Do you look back at it now at you know, as far as you've come in your career and, you know, being retired and everything, look back at it as now, you know, the public gets to hear your side of it, being like an officer. Officers rarely talk about, you know, the establishment of, you know, back then the AMA was establishing themselves, or you know, these organizations were establishing themselves, and that's in the 70s, you know, and you're a kid, you could have chose either path, whether to be a gang member or a cop. So do you look at it, you know, back then that, you know, you were right in the mix of the boiling pot when the food was barely starting to be made? Like, do you look at it and trip out?
I just look at it I was a very fortunate man that I ran into the cop named Al Arias, and there had to have been other cops out there like him.
Right.
So I'm very fortunate. I'm blessed. That saved me. When I got out there in the 70s, Emma was just beginning. You know, it was the beginning of Emma, and I knew guys. I put guys in jail I became hardcore Emma. You know, and I had relatives that were part of MA. You know, I knew the way they worked, but even like one of the relatives I speak of, and he came up to me, and every time I'd be around, he'd leave. And I'd say, I caught up to him one time. I said, why do you leave every time I get there? And he says, I'm embarrassed, mijo. I'm embarrassed. You know where I'm from. You know what happened. You know what life is. I said, so you know where I'm from. I said, there's no reason to be embarrassed. You know, you did what you did. I know what you do. I respect you. I'll give you the respect you deserve. I mean, right now you're out living the life, you know, and he was clean at the time. I said, so it happens. That's just the way it is. That's why I treated everybody the same. Richard Ramirez, I talked to Richard no different than I'm talking to you right now. And he's the most vile, vicious man that I've ever met.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. Treat people the way you'd like to be treated, and you'll get along.
Right.
And that's the trouble trying to teach cops and everybody, not just cops, everybody.
Right.
You know, cops are no better than anybody out there.
Right. So building communication, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. You know, now it's a lot different. Even back in the day, the guys, most of my patrol time and gang work was all done in East Los. And the guys had respect for me. You know, they even gave me, there's a gang up there called La Rock. They were right there in the Maravilla projects, the Rock. They even gave me a duplicate rock, you know, that they used to have in the project. They had this big rock, and they gave me a duplicate one. Hey, Carrillo, this for you, eh? And it said La Rock M, you know. And so I got along with them. I knew how to deal with them. That was me. And so I don't think things have changed. Today, there is no respect. There is no respect for. When I came back from Vietnam, it was hard to talk about being in Vietnam because they were protesting.
Right.
And we were baby killers, we were this or that, so you just kept quiet. I never talked about it for years. Now I'm retired. I don't talk about being a cop because it's just the way it was when I came back from Vietnam. Cops are no good. Cops are dirty. Cops are this. They don't show you respect. Well, respect is earned, you know, and young guys now with cameras, you know, photographing everything, and they got no respect, coupled with the fact that the Mr. Gascon isn't doing anything everybody's getting away with it, and it's a tough time to be a cop.
Yeah. I want to touch a little bit now. We come to 1985. I was 17 years old, and this is coming from somebody that fell in love with music at 11 years old. My first job was selling records at a swap meet. In the 80s, this is the way it was for people that may not know or who may not lived at that time. For me, it's the best era of music. That's just for me, my opinion. At that time, we had R&B that was booming. We had rock music. We had disco, or people would call it high energy, especially if you lived in the East LA area. Then we had freestyle music. We had new wave, punk rock, and then rap was booming. We had the crack epidemic. We had the gang epidemic. And another thing that was also popular in the 80s was popping, breaking, DJing. And if you were a big-time drug dealer, you were almost looked at as a celebrity. I just wanted to paint a picture for people, at least from my perspective, what was going on during that time. And then in 1985 comes up on the scene, Richard Ramirez. Now, what I want to talk about is that I just want to talk about the first 3 murders that took place, and then kind of to use that as a springboard to jump into what I want to conversate about. This was March 17, 1985. This was day 1 in Rosemead. And if I'm correct, he walks into this house, and I believe, maybe you can help us walk through. I know he shoots a woman in the forehead.
It was 8510 Village Lane, city of Rosemead. Dale Okazaki was the decedent.
Yes.
And there was a Maria Hernandez that was surviving. And he didn't just walk in. Dale Okazaki was already inside this condominium. and Maria Hernandez was her roommate. Maria Hernandez had they had an electric garage door opener. She opened the garage, she parked her car, went in, started to go inside, got to the door that opens into the condominium proper. At the same time, when she keyed the door, she hit the button. It takes 8 seconds for the button for the garage door to go down. It's pitch black. Richard made a deliberate sound. He slapped the top of the car that was right there next to her so she could turn around. He wanted her to see him. He could have come up right behind her, popped her in the head. He didn't. He wanted to see her. He had the gun point shoulder. In other words, he wasn't sidestepping. He had some kind of training behind how to shoot a gun. Walked right up to her. She had her keys in her hand, put her hand right in front of her face. He pulled the trigger. The lights went out. Richard will tell me later on he thought he was dead. He thought he was in hell. This was it. His ears were ringing. Everything went pitch black. She fell down to the ground, but she had unlocked the door, and the door was partially open. He pushed her body, opened the door, and went inside. Fortunate for her, the bullet struck the keys. The bullet entered her hand and never exited. So she jumps up, hits the garage door opener, runs out of the garage, starts running the alley behind her, and she hears a second gunshot from inside the condo. She runs around the condo to the front door thinking that Richard's going to leave out the back. No, Richard come right out the front. There was a second confrontation. There they danced around a car. He's going one way. She goes in like a little cat and mouse game. Yeah. Finally, she just threw her hands in the air and said, "You already shot me once. You don't have to shoot me again." He put the gun by his side and walked away. He didn't run. Put the gun by his side and walked away. She went inside, dialed 911. The cops get there. You got Dale Okazaki, who has been shot in the forehead. I get there. I'm doing the crime scene. I hear somebody say, the deputy comes up and says, "Hey, there's a lady outside that wants to talk to you. She's Maria's mother." And I said, "Okay, I'll be right out there. Just give me a couple of minutes here. I'll be right out there to talk to her." Yeah. But I'm silhouetted inside. It's lit inside the house. They're in the dark, so they can see in, I can't see out. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I hear somebody say, female voice saying, "Gilbert, is that you?" And I'm sitting there saying, "Who's calling me Gilbert?" Nobody called me Gilbert. Everybody called me Gil. I'm cool now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "Who are you?" She says, "It's me, Pauline." And I said, "Pumpkin?" She goes, "Yes." And Pumpkin used to live 1, 2, 3 doors down from me where I grew up in my house. My mom and dad had baptized Maria Hernandez, her daughter.
Oh, wow.
Shortly after baptism, she ended up getting divorced. She ended up remarrying. She moved out. I hadn't seen Maria since she was about 6 months old. So that was the first one.
Okay. Let's go to the second one. This was March 18th now, the second day, and it's Monterey Park.
That's Silent U.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Can you walk us through that?
Silent U is driving home, just driving down the street without a care in the world, and all of a sudden somebody's following her, and then he gets out in front of her and stops, gets out of the car. She puts it in reverse. It's a panic reverse. She backs up into a parked car, and the car's stuck there now. Neighbors, witnesses who talked to Monterey Park, because it was their initial handle, their case, said they thought it was a boyfriend-girlfriend fight. He's yelling, she's screaming at him, and he's yelling. He drags her out of the car, shoots her in the side of the abdominal trunk, and then gets in his car and takes off and leaves her there. They roll her to the hospital. She dies in the hospital.
Wow. 10 days later, if I'm correct, no, I'm sorry. It's about 9 days later, but it's just 10 days after the first murder. Whittier, double murder now. Male was executed on the couch.
Yes.
Shot in the temple.
That's the Zazzara family. Max, I can't remember her name. Maybe Leela Zazzara. He's sleeping on the couch. She's sleeping in the bedroom. Richard makes entry into the residence via an open bathroom window. He steps on a 5-gallon plastic can. He goes inside. He pops the Mr. Zazzara right in the side of the head. Contact wound. He's dead right away. He goes into the bedroom. Mrs. Zazzara, who was an attorney, and we can only surmise because we have surviving victims. You know, it's always where's the money? Where's the jewelry? Shut up. You know, don't look at me and shut up. And so she had multiple stab wounds. Her eyes were cut out and removed. And she had a great big wound. I asked him at one time, I said, what was the T underneath her left breast spot? And he said he was going to cut her heart out. He didn't realize, since he didn't take anatomy, that there's a rib cage around protecting those vital organs, so he couldn't get through the bones, so he just left her.
Now, if I'm correct, is that the one where he took her eyes out?
He took her eyes out.
And did you guys ever find that?
No. Still keeping an eye out for him, though.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Did you ever ask him whatever happened to that?
Yes.
And what was his answer?
He wouldn't get an answer. He wouldn't answer that. We had a very open talk after conviction, but he did not. If he had information that we didn't, it like made him. He was
Powerful.
better. He's better than us, so he wouldn't tell us. At one time, I mean, we're talking very. I said, Rich, you could really help me out, brother. Future murders like this, you could give us some insight. It would help us out with other ones. And his response was, I couldn't do that. He says, if I did that, Lucifer would kick my ass when I got down there. No, I can't help you out.
Yeah, and eventually we'll get into that because, wow, okay. Anything you want to add or say?
This is just like I'm sure the audience is tripping out because this is like literally having a time machine right here. Like,
Yes.
I'm
Hope it's a big time machine.
Now, if I'm correct, is this the first time you guys get the Avia shoe print?
At the Zazara case, we got the Via footprints and
the hat, right? The
no,
hat
it's
at
a shoe print.
But
We
the
got
hat
a
was
hat.
at
The hat was at the Dale Okazaki. It was an
Right.
AC/DC hat.
Right.
Yeah.
We had footprint. We try to think we do good work in Homicide Bureau, and I can tell you today without equivocation that on January 9th, 1985, 1,356 pair of Model 440 Avias arrived in New York from Taiwan for distribution throughout the U.S., of which 6 pair ended up in the state of California, 1 pair ended up in L.A.
Wow.
That was an important piece of evidence.
Wow. And I want to share something because back then, again, 85, there's popping, there's breakdancing, and some of the most popular shoes. Okay, the most popular shoes back then for breakdancers and for poppers. And if you were just a b-boy, meaning a guy that was just into the hip-hop culture, you had Adidas, you had Nikes, you had Ponies, Converse, Pumas, even BK's, British Knights, and Avias, okay?
Reeboks.
Reeboks, correct. And I remember that Avias was kind of like a cheap, like not too many breakdancers would use them. My brother Ruben had a pair of those shoes.
The Avia just was, I'm glad it wasn't one of the other shoes because then we'd have really been in trouble. But the Avia was a brand new shoe that just came out in January. That's when they were released. And it was even, we could nail it down even further because Richard was wearing a black pair of Avias. And the guy who had the patent on them was a guy by the name of Jerry Stubblefield, who was a Oregon Ducks track coach.
Oh, okay. Wow. And he just happened to buy that one pair.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about...
Now,
Yes.
he wasn't into breakdancer, but Avia was shoe of choice for serial killers.
Yeah.
He had a good run at him.
Yeah, exactly. To me, this one is important, so I want to touch on this. It's Mabel Bell, Florence Lang, lived in Monrovia. This is May 29th, 1985. And the reason why I bring this up, because this is the first time, if I'm correct, that you guys see a satanic pentagram
Yes.
on the wall. Now, you guys obviously had witnessed the murders before. At this time, were you guys thinking, because I know you believe that you believe that it could possibly be one guy.
Yes.
And they probably even laughed at you for thinking that it was probably
They did.
one guy. Okay. But now you see a satanic pentagram. Was that a twist to everything? Like, what the hell is this now?
It meant absolutely nothing to me because I didn't know anything about pentagrams. I didn't know about satanic worship.
Okay.
It, had to do some studying. You just keep learning more and more.
Yeah.
And so he put a pentagram up in San Francisco, and it was carved into a closet door, and it was also carved Jack the Knife. And I had to ask Richard, what's Jack the Knife? And he said, just another name for Jack the Ripper. That was another name they used for him. It was Jack the Knife. So Satanism didn't mean, the pentagram didn't mean nothing to me. I didn't know what it meant.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you think at that point where, he already committed a couple of murders, that he was just trying to establish himself as being, he wants to have now a name for himself?
I really can't answer that. And a lot of the questions I'm asked over the years are questions of that nature. Why do you think he did this? Why do you think he did that? What was his motives? And Richard asked me, why do you think I did this stuff? And my response was, I don't know, Rich. If I knew that, I'd be a doctor making a lot more money than I am as a cop. Leave that up to somebody that studies that shit, not me. I can't say. He did say, and I will say this, he's the most articulate murderer I've ever interviewed. And he says, hey, I've got an ego that'll fill this room. These are his words, quote, I've got an ego that'll fill this room. I can tell you anything about serial killers from the time the Romans fed the Christians to the lions to
But
Ted Bundy.
he plays real meek, like you wouldn't think that he knew all that, and he likes that. He wants you to think that he's dumb, but he's
No,
not.
we had some good communication going on between us, and a lot of it was because of the culture. One day when he came into court, he looked, and in the courtroom he shouted, "Órale, Carrillo!" And when they took the first recess, we came out, and all the reporters came running around me. What was that? Was he? They thought he was giving me some kind of death threats or this or that, and the only one that knew what he had said was Tony Valdez. So to this day, if Tony calls me up, first thing he says, "Hey, órale, Carrillo." So I don't know why he did it, and I don't know what was his motive. I know he liked being feared, and he liked eventually when they dubbed him the Night Stalker. He did like that.
Right.
Wow.
So I'm sorry, Tony. So believing that it's one person, and all these other precincts probably thinking it's multiple people and naming him, giving him different names. Did it get to you and bug you that this was just like, it wasn't a planned thing, it was real sporadic? The cities that he was going to, the ages of the different people.
He went all over the county.
Right.
And nobody was hooking them together, because to hook them together means that Gil Carrillo was right, and I can understand why they didn't believe in Gil Carrillo. That never upset me at all, because I owe everything. I owe most of the investigation to a retired professor named Robert Morneau, retired FBI agent. I took two semesters of advanced criminal investigation pertaining to sex crimes. He gave me the knowledge to work these cases and to identify some things that normal people wouldn't do, not even regular homicide cops. When he made the original noise, slapped his hand so she could see him, why does he do that? Dale Okazaki, she got hit right in the forehead, and he told her she was stupid. She put her hands on the countertop, pulling herself up to see if I was anywhere wrong, and I was right on the other side of the countertop, waiting for her to pop her head up. But he had already encountered her. He hit her in the back of the head, which knocked her down. And if he wanted to kill her, why didn't he kill her then? Silent Yu, he drug her out of the car. Why not kill her when she's right there in the car? He didn't. And in my opinion, the first thing I started recognizing was there is a sex, it's difficult to say, the little girl in here, but it's a deviancy.
Right.
When somebody sticks a gun in their face like that,
Right.
it's because they want to see the fear in you, not because they're really intent on killing you, but they want to see the fear. That's what they're living for. So he made the noise. He wanted to see the fear in her eyes. When he went outside to the front and she was no longer fearful, hey, you've already shot me once, threw her hands in the air, the fear is gone. And he put his hands down. So he was doing this, and the reason they wouldn't believe it, because they didn't know about that stuff. Not only that, you go back in criminal history, nobody has ever been documented doing the things that I was alleging he was doing. There was some child, what the public didn't know about, there were some kidnappings of children.
Right.
And in the documentary, one of them came when she was 6 years old at the time she was kidnapped.
Right.
And if he could if you followed his commands, you lived. If you didn't, if you acquiesced, you lived. If you didn't, you died. And so, and he killed with, and serial killers normally use the same method.
Right.
What you hear about, all the modus operandi you hear on TV, it's the same method. But he didn't. He used guns, knives, manual strangulation, ligature strangulation, blunt force trauma, you know, shod foot. He used it all. The hammer uses a sex object.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
You know, so he was different. Nothing was the same. Nobody's ever been documented doing that. So that's why people did not believe in me.
You know, I'm sorry. Go finish.
I'm
Go.
sorry. Do you think he used different things to essentially get a certain high?
I can't
better
be
for himself?
that. Once again, going to the operation of his mind, I have no idea why he was doing it.
Right.
Sex is, according to Morneau, sex is whatever makes you feel good.
Right.
So whatever made him feel good, that's what he was doing.
Right.
That's what I wanted to bring up, because I remember when you spoke, you had a Zoom conversation with Pastor David Rocha, and he had asked you, you know, why do you feel, and then you touched a little bit on that you found out that for some people, sex is whatever makes you feel good.
Yes.
And so they continue to do that because to them that's sex.
That's sex. Seeing people with fear in their eye, that's sex to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The release of endorphins.
Sure.
You know, now when he was raping women and he was molesting boys, girls, was there ever any of him molesting men?
No.
Or raping men?
No, never an adult male.
Okay. Now, up to that point, all you guys had was the Avia shoe print. Now, I know he grabbed stuff to strangle. Did you guys have at all any prints up to that time?
No prints. But we had more than just the Avia footprint.
Okay.
We had evidence left behind, the stuff that he used. We had fibers, different patterns and photographs, what he did, different. He was using, if you go to the Walmart or any, the cheap gardening gloves that are just cheap rubber that have little nubs on them. He used those. Sometimes he just used socks on his hands. And plus we had physical description from surviving victims that were eyewitnesses, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
So there was more. We had no idea who he was, but there was more than just a footprint.
Okay. And now, so when he would rape these women, was there ever any, because I know they're saying that they didn't use DNA until the OJ trial,
I don't even know they use DNA in OJ. Yeah, they did, because they put on a class for OJ, for the OJ.
Yes,
what a waste.
Right.
But
up to this point,
there was no DNA in 85. There was no DNA. Wasn't even heard of then.
wow, so he could have just raped women, left his semen there, and
But they were saving evidence like that.
Yes.
You're right.
Yes.
okay, that's what I want to touch on now. I know at one point, I heard several times, I believe twice, that after he would if he would kill his victims, rape them, whatever, that he would actually hang out, possibly eat something at their home.
Well, there's a couple of places. In Monrovia, he ate a banana. In Diamond Bar, he ate some honeydew melon. Those are the only two places that I can think of right now that he had something to eat.
Okay. I believe the Diamond Bar one was August 8th, 1985. They had seen a honeydew melon half eaten. And I believe that when he was sexually assaulting this woman, he told her, don't look at me. And she said, I won't look at you. I swear to God, I won't. But he said, don't swear to God, swear to Satan.
Yes.
So now.
That was Sakina Ababat.
Man.
Okay, now, from, in your opinion, do you believe that this guy was a real Satanist, or, I mean, did you guys ever have that type of conversation?
Yeah, I believe we didn't talk about it that much.
Okay.
I believe he was into Satanism, and one of his old crime partners told me that he started hanging around, getting some dope, and he started hanging around with these people that were into satanic worship. And he said once he started getting in, Richard, according to this guy, Richard told him, once he got into that, the booty started getting better. And when I say booty, I don't mean physical.
Right.
I mean the stuff he's stealing.
Right.
And so it got to be better. I know that he was doing some of it because we found up in Turnbow Canyon, we got word that they were holding satanic rituals up in Turnbow Canyon. So we sent a class of cadets up there, formed a line. They got there, and I was headed for San Francisco. They were up there. We had other cops run them, and they found the Avia footprint up there.
Wow.
So he was doing that, and he did do this. So one time I told him, I said, Rich, come on, what'd you think, So we go out, we mess around, we get drunk, we do whatever we're going to do. And then on the way home, I said, oh, dear God, just let me get home safe. I won't do this again. And did you ever think of that? He said, oh, no, I couldn't do that. He says, not at all. So he didn't, that's what he did. He wrote 666. He got a kick out of it. And but I didn't care. At one point in time, I'm interviewing him at a table, and he's making just with his finger on the clear desk, he's just round and round, like he's making a circle. And I looked him in the eye, and I told him, I said, go ahead and fill it in. And he said, fill what in? I said, the pentagram. And he says, you know about that stuff? I said, yeah, I studied. And he erased it. There was nothing there, but then he erased it. So,
Wow.
and the little girl told us that he had, we didn't know what it was. She just trying to describe it, looked like an Indian headdress. It was the pentagram he drew on his arm.
Oh, okay.
So, and he felt that gave him power.
Wow. Okay.
But he didn't kill for satanic purposes.
Right.
Okay.
He wasn't sacrificing anybody.
Right.
Okay. Was there anything you wanted to add to that? Or?
I wanted to ask about his trying to get into his head and stuff like that. Did you ever ask him about, and you probably did, about his uncle, the one that... No, didn't care about that. Right. I was, it's like a professional football player. Peyton Manning.
Yes.
He goes out every day after he's done with practice. He goes out, he goes to the bar with his buddies, or he goes home, sees his wife, his kids, go to the movies. He's just a regular guy. Come Sunday morning, he puts on those pads, and it's game time. So everything he's done, everything is out of his mind except for game time. It's all football. This is business. When I went in with him, it was all business, and I didn't care about his past. I didn't care about anything. I wanted him to talk to me about the case. That's what I wanted. And we had other people doing backgrounds on him and everything else, and I didn't care. It wasn't enough. I don't care what made him. I told him, I said, hey, my job is to get all the facts, present them to the DA, get you convicted.
Wow. There was a time where he went to San Francisco. Did you ever ask him, or what was his motive to go to San Francisco? Did he have friends, family?
We knew he had a friend up there.
Okay.
Through investigation, we knew he had a friend. We had the cops up in San Francisco, Frank Feltzon, and I forget his partner's name, but they were up there. They had worked that case. That was the Peter Pan case.
Yes, right. That's right. Now, there was one case, I believe. We went to San Francisco. He commits this murder. He ate the food that was in the refrigerator. Okay, and then I guess he throws it up in the kitchen. And then he jerks off in the living room, if I'm correct, and his satanic pentagram on the wall. I think you talked about that.
That was San Francisco's case. I don't know anything about it. I won't talk about San Francisco case. That was those investigated. First time I heard about that really was in the documentary. It was Frank Feltzon.
Yeah.
Talking about that stuff.
Yeah. Because when I heard that, I was like, wow. Okay. Now, as far as the whole Dianne Feinstein thing, when she goes public and she pretty much starts giving up things that she should have never have given up, can you kind of walk us through it on what she said that pretty much could have just destroyed?
Well, we were on our way back from San Francisco. We just arrived back in the Hall of Justice when you walked into the Hall of Justice. Then our news media section was on the mezzanine level. And so as we're walking in, they said, hey, Gil, Frank, come here. Take a look at this. And it's Dianne Feinstein talking about a vehicle, a pair of shoes, the Avias, and the caliber gun, the gun we were looking for. And I'm saying, what in God's earth is she doing? I was smoking hot. And I said, come on, let's go upstairs. We went up, we were on the 8th floor. Went to my desk, and Frank's desk was right next to mine. And I just said, forget this. Just get out of here. We may as well go fishing. And we went down to a local distributor of spirits, And we sat down and we started having a couple, and we saw our captain and told the captain, you've got to do something. You've got to talk to the sheriff to stop this nonsense. So the captain left. He called back about 30 minutes later, told us to stop drinking and get some dinner and be back in the office at 8 o'clock. Sheriff came back into work and held a press conference that night and told politicians to stay out of it. They're causing more harm than any good. And he told her aides, if she says anything else, we'll embarrass her.
Wow, you know, because when I saw that, I think to myself, like, you just told the killer, change your shoes, get rid of the gun, change your car.
That's what he did.
Wow.
That's what he did. Over the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh,
Except for the car. The car he got back here, but he dumped.
wow. Okay, I got so much, but I'm trying to, like, in Frisco, if I'm correct, his friend Armando gives up his name. Because up to that point, did you guys just had Rick or Richard?
We had Rick, Richard, or El Despeinado. We didn't have a last name.
El Despeinado, okay. Yeah. And then finally he said, okay, Richard Ramirez. So now you guys have a name.
Yes.
And then you guys have, the shoe she gave up, the caliber of gun he had, the car. So now you guys go on a name, and then, if I'm correct, a thumbprint.
We had a name. Our informant told us that he had been arrested by LAPD. He had been cited by LAPD, and he had been arrested by LAPD the year before. So we now had a first name, a last name, and we had a thumbprint from inside a car that he used. It was a stolen car that he used down in Mission Viejo. And so they didn't have automated fingerprints then unless you were a convicted felon. Right. Misdemeanors hadn't been automated yet, so we had them hand search every Richard Ramirez they had as a misdemeanor. And they found 8 of them, and they found one of them that matched the print. They found a booking photo, and it was the arrest of LAPD for stolen auto that they gave a misdemeanor conviction on.
Now, you first look at his photo. What goes through your mind, man?
That's what I'm looking for. I really can't remember. You know, I was at that time. We're just running on adrenaline.
Now they decided to go. They decided to go public with it. Were you in favor for them to put it out?
No.
Okay.
No, but hindsight is 20/20. It was the right decision to be made. We want him. The captain came up and talked to me, and Frankie says, "Hey, they're calling me down to the sheriff's office. They're talking about releasing his name. What is your opinion?" He said, "Give us 24 hours. We'll have him in custody. But if you put out his name, then it's a chase. He's on.
Yeah.
And he knows we're after him, so we're at the disadvantage." And he said, "Okay, I'll fight." He went downstairs. They had Daryl Gates from LAPD, Brad Gates, who was the sheriff of Orange County, and then they had the Irishman, I forget his name, who was the chief of San Francisco Police, and Sherman Block. They met in Sherman Block's office. They conference called the chief up there. Our captain came back up about 45 minutes later. He said, "We lost. They're going to release it." So we could do nothing about it. And what they were afraid of is if we didn't get him and he killed somebody that night, then somebody's in trouble, because if you knew who he was, why didn't you tell the public?
Yes.
So I understand. I just put so much time in this. I wanted to get him.
Yes. If I'm correct, at that time you're what, 35 years old?
35.
35. Okay. I'm 17. I'm across the street at my friend Angel's house, and he tells me they're about to show the killer. Now, keep in mind, everybody during that time, if you were in LA County, could have swore you saw Richard Ramirez somewhere.
Yeah, they'd still tell me they've seen him.
Yeah, he was in the alley taking a piss, or I saw him walking out of the restaurant, came out of the record store. Everybody's seen him somehow. I thought I seen him, but it was my brother. Okay, but so what happened was they show him, and they show the picture of him. And I remember I said to myself, that was him? Like, that's him? Like, that goofy bastard? Like, that's him? I expected to see this big, stocky, monster type of looking dude. Texas Chainsaw dude. But no, I was like, that's him? But it made sense to me now, because after watching the documentary, when he entered into a house and he shoots a woman, and then he shoots the man, they don't die, and that man chases them out. And I believe your partner at that time.
Well, the man didn't chase him out.
Okay.
The man got up, was running. Richard thought he was coming after him.
Oh.
The man was running to the bedroom to try and save his kid. And Richard ran out. My partner made a comment to the Times about it.
Okay, that's what it was. And I think he was saying, oh, he's a coward for running.
Yeah, he said his true colors came out. It was a cowardly act. He went running away because the other guy was going to fight him and beat him. And when I went, the next meeting we had with Richard, we're at a sit-down, and he looks at me and says, hey, what's up with your partner? And I said, I can't control him sometimes, Rich. I said, we discussed it. He said you were a coward. I said, hey, if I'd have shot somebody in the head and they want to get up and they're going to come after me and I couldn't do them with a gun, what makes you think that these things are going to stop them? Right. I'd have been running too. You know, it doesn't mean you're a coward. What kind of Superman you got down there?
Right.
You know, so I think you did the right thing. And he said, that's it exactly. You know, I want to get out of this guy, want to fight. The gun didn't stop him. I'm booking. So that's what he did.
Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to press, take a 5-minute intermission break. We're going to come right back. We're going to talk just a little bit more. We'll wrap this up and we'll take some phone calls.
Whatever. Okay. I'm your guest. This is your house, brother.
I know, man, but I'm trying really hard not to call you sir, man. So anyways, other than that, I want to thank everybody that's on the live chat, everybody who's tuned in. I hope you guys are enjoying this. We're going to take a 5-minute intermission break, and we'll be right back. So once we put that number, make sure you guys call, and you could ask, you know, I almost said officer, but Gil Carrillo, anything you want. But please make it short, get straight to the point. Please do not call and, you know, share your feelings or anything like that. Just call and ask your questions. So we'll be back, 5 minutes, intermission break. Call somebody, text somebody, and let them know that Gil Carrillo is in the building. We'll be back. And welcome back, everyone, to Freaky Tales podcast once again with my co-host, Marvelous Inc., and our special guest, Gil Carrillo. Thank you, Gil, for being here, showing up, and giving us, answering our questions, and allowing the people to see firsthand, not just from the documentary, but you here live answering and eventually answering their calls. Now, we had ended with, I had seen this picture and I thought, man, I expected to see such a tougher dude. But one thing that a lot of people didn't realize, and I didn't realize, that the guy was only 25 years old, if I'm correct.
He was 25 at the time of his arrest.
Yes, I mean, and okay, my son, whom you met, is 31. I still see him as little mocoso.
Sure.
So when I hear that this 25-year-old did all these horrific things, I'm thinking, what kind of person does this? But, obviously he had his reasons on why he did what he did. I know anybody can possibly ask him, why did you do? I don't think people like that will give you a clear answer. Did he ever give you a clear answer why he did it?
No, he asked me why. Why do you think I did this? Why do you think I am the way I am? And I just told him, I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Because 85 comes around and then all of a sudden he just starts killing people. Now, do you think that there was possibly murders that he committed before 85?
We found one murder in San Francisco. We did in San Francisco upon it. 10-year-old little girl that he committed back in 1984. We looked at about 8 other cases here in LA County, but there wasn't enough evidence to link him in, and we didn't want to have him beat one case and then we'd have to do the other one, because if you beat one and they think that, hey, maybe they're just stacking the deck, would have helped him out with the other. So we didn't file him. We didn't do anything with him because it was all circumstantial. Richard said he was good for 4 of them. 4 more here in LA County we didn't know about.
Wow. Okay. It was, just to give a little backtrack, it was Friday, August 30th, 1985. You guys got a name, Richard Ramirez. Here we have Saturday, August 31st, 1985. This is day 167. Okay, his photos released. He arrives in LA from Arizona.
Yes.
Okay, and if I'm correct, the way the story goes, he goes into a liquor store, he looks at a newspaper, probably La Opinión, sees his picture on there. Now he's scared.
He just saw his picture on a news rack. Didn't even open it up. It was on the front page. He saw it.
Wow. So, and then he hops on a bus. Where was he going at this time?
He had a brother that lived right there in East LA. His brother was 8 miles east of where he was at. Right there in East LA. Brannick on Olympic.
And did he have a brother also in Arizona?
Yes.
Okay. So now, when he would go to Arizona or Frisco, do you think he would go just to visit family, or maybe he left because LA was too hot for him?
I have no idea, nor do I care.
Okay.
He wasn't here, wasn't part of the case. I didn't care about it.
Okay, see, that's, and I'm glad you're sharing that, because me, obviously, I don't know what a cop thinks like, so I would have I wonder how come did he know what was his motive?
We put 2 guys to do a 5-year background on him, find out where he moved, what he did, as much as they could, only with positive content, so we could show where he was at, what he was doing. If anything popped up, nothing did, and again, thousands of questions have come in, and people have a lot of questions. But remember, my job wasn't to find out why or what else he did, so long as there wasn't other murders in our county.
Yes.
Right now, I'm concentrating on putting together a case to send him to prison. That's what we did.
So now he gets off the bus. He tries to take, I believe, a Mustang off of somebody. The guy fights him off.
Yes.
Takes off somewhere else. I guess a block down.
Right around the corner, a block away.
Okay, so he tries to take a car from a woman.
Yes.
Dice, dame carro, si no te mato. If not, I'll kill you.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously this man came out, hit him over the head. The mob grabs his ass.
Gave him a good coscorón. He's been running. He's been running across the freeway, over the sound walls, over the 5 freeway, because he was on Olympic. He ran north, northwest, jumping over fences, getting down the street. He knew people were chasing him by now. Oh, wow. When he tries to carjack the car, it doesn't work. That takes a lot of energy. He ran around a corner. Now he's going to grab this lady, get out, and then he got a good coscorón, hit him in the head. He's tired.
Yeah.
He really is. So now he's just going to run. Well, the neighbors see my neighbor's fighting. She's screaming, let's get him. So all they really had to do, they just ran just a few houses up, rat packed them. He gave up, quit. They didn't beat the shit out of him. They didn't do anything else. They just held him there until the cops got there.
At that moment, did they know who that was?
No.
Okay. At what point in time was it? Did somebody bring out a newspaper and say, "Yeah, este güey"?
There was a little kid. I was told there was a little kid that kept saying, "That's him, el matador," and they said, "Quítate de aquí," get back, get back. And then the first deputy got there, who just happened to be Andy Ramirez. Andy was a rookie cop working a one-man unit. He'd been on training it's a two-man unit. You train on two-man unit, and now he's been there 6 months at least, and so now I put him out on one-man unit. The call came out as citizens holding a felony suspect. Well, as a cop, especially as a rookie cop, that's an easy one. That's a gimme call.
Right.
You're getting a felony arrest. You don't have to do anything. You just write up what they're doing, what happened. He gets there. He sees that the guy's got an owie on his head, handcuffs him, puts him in the back seat of the car. The paramedics get there. They wrap, the gauze that looks like a turban on his head.
Yeah.
He leaves him back there. He's gathering information from the people right there. When here comes the blue meanies, LAPD, because the dividing line was only a half block away.
Indiana.
So west of Indiana
Right.
is LAPD, east of Indiana is ours. So here come the black and whites because they've been chasing 911 calls. Jumping through my yard, he's over here. And all those calls were coming from the east side, from the west side of Indiana.
Yeah.
So now they see all the commotion. They run up there and one guy's very smart. Says, "Yeah, that's the man we've been chasing." Opens the door, takes him out of the back seat of the radio car from the sheriff's car, put him in an LAPD car, and said, "Go ahead and take him to Hollenbeck."
Oh, wow.
Normally when you do stuff like that, when you arrest somebody for another agency, the common courtesy is take the handcuffs off him, put your handcuffs on, and give me my handcuffs back. They didn't even give him his handcuffs back. They just whisked him off. And all the cops at East LA Station were pissed off at Andy.
Because you let him.
You let him go. That's the biggest arrest in LA County in history, and you let him go. How could you do that? And I just laughed. Because, see, it really didn't make a difference to me who arrested him.
Yeah.
Needed to be gone. I laughed because I said, "Look at fellas, if it would have been a half a block on the other side and you'd been chasing him from East LA over in the west side of Indiana and you could have gotten away, you'd have done the very same thing. Just because they got it, he knew who he was." Andy was probably one of the very few cops in the county that didn't know who he had.
Wow. Now, I heard that when he was in the car, the cop car, that he was saying, "It's me, it's me, it's me."
Yeah.
Okay, so he knew he had gotten caught, and he's pretty much just saying, "Okay, you
Yeah.
got me."
He's tired.
Okay. When he gets taken to, you said Hollenbeck, if I'm correct?
Yes.
When did you get the call? We got him. Was it immediately?
Immediately.
So now what goes through your mind? Like, oh,
I was already up and at him. I was over at Industry Station when they called me and they said, "Hey, he's in custody." Got him in East LA. I was like, let's go. I jumped on the freeway. I had a black and white with me. I was driving an unwrapped, just a regular detective car. And no matter of fact, it was my own car. And so I had my own car, and I had a black and white with me. He says, "Let's go." And I put him in front, and then we just hauled ass down there. I get down to East LA, and I said, "Where's he at?" He said, "Well, not here. He's in Hollenbeck." And now I'm sitting there saying, what the heck? So now I can drive slowly. I get to Hollenbeck Station. And when I got to Hollenbeck, the second floor of Hollenbeck was our detective bureau. And I went up there, and it was like a party up there. I mean, there were all kinds of uniformed cops up in there. And their lieutenant, I want to say his name was Ron Lewis, from LAPD Robbery Homicide Division, came up to me, says, "It's all yours, Gil. It's your case. You guys call the shots." I said, "Well, the first thing we're going to do is clear this room, get all these cops out of here." And so they got all the cops out of there. And now I got to see him. So I opened the door. I just took a look at him, closed the door again, walked out, and waited for my partner to get there. So that's all we did.
So your partner gets there. It's just you two going?
No, 2 guys from LAPD. Paul Tipp and Leroy Orozco went in there with us. They were working it from their side.
Okay.
And they were work robbery homicide division. They went in there with us. They didn't say anything. They just went in there with us.
Okay. What was your first impression of him when the first time you actually sat down with him?
I didn't have an impression of him at all when I first sat down. Like I said, it's game time. I knew what I had to do.
Yes, yes.
And I didn't care what he looked like. And I didn't form an impression. I just sat there. And my partner, he started, and he said, okay, Richard, first thing we want to do is we're going to read your constitutional rights. And so he did. And as soon as he did that, Richard said, I want an attorney.
Okay. Now, I know that the attorney that he got, I believe, was possibly a friend of the family's.
Yes.
I know at that time a lot of people felt that this attorney probably wasn't as qualified because of so much that he had to defend Richard as far as like all these murders that he had committed. And I believe these attorneys caught a lot of slack for representing him. But now, he goes before the judge to plead that he's not guilty, okay?
Yeah.
And he's being defended. He's being defended by these attorneys. Now he says, not guilty. He pleads not guilty.
Yes.
Okay. But yet, if I'm correct, on that same day he says, "Hell, Satan."
Yes.
Okay. Now here's my thing. When I looked at that, I said to myself, "Okay, you left pentagrams where you kill these people. You're saying not guilty, but you're saying hell, Satan. You're showing what you left."
Right.
You know, I just like, this guy might as well just say he is guilty.
Well, what you don't understand is it's a very, very complicated case
Yes.
in order to present. Richard, the very first day, said, you know, how do I get the death penalty?
Wow.
And he says, you got to take it and you got to fight it in court. Because in order to get the death penalty without going to the trial, you have to have concurrence with your attorneys. And no attorney in his right mind is going to say, yes, go ahead and plead guilty. Okay. So he had to plead not guilty.
Okay.
And his attorney told him the same thing.
Okay. So he knew the game. So
Sure.
Okay. Now I know you guys take him and put him in the same cell as the Hillside Strangler.
Yes.
And was that something that he was proud of?
He was excited because he was going in that cell. Tell you, he was well versed on serial killers. And when we told him that, let's see, Kenneth Bianchi, that was his cell, he was all excited.
Wow. So now he's captured. And this may be one of those questions, I don't care. Did anybody ever look into where Richard was living? Where was he staying at during all this time?
Oh, we knew he was staying in flop house hotels down Skid Row.
Okay, I know, if I'm correct, one of them was, God, now I forgot.
Cecil.
The Cecil.
The Cecil Hotel. So that is true then.
Yes.
So he was just back and forth. He didn't necessarily have an apartment where you guys went back and found a bunch of stuff.
Yes. No, we found the stuff that we looked for. He did have on him a ticket, a receipt. He had what we called his kill kit. He had a duffel bag over at the Greyhound bus depot. He used to hang around down there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, the reason why I bring up the whole Hell Satan thing is because I want to say in the 80s, I think it was after 85, I had a guy that I knew that lived locally here. So I go to his house and go visit him, and he ends up showing me a satanic Bible that was written by Anton LaVey, who opened up the First Church of Satan in San Francisco. And I see it, and he tells me, "Hey, man, you want me to read you a couple of verses up from this?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I don't want you to read me nothing." He goes, "What's the matter? You scared?" "Bro, I'm not scared. I just don't want to. I don't care about that." But I remember in the book, it had the pentagram, and I remembered, the Hell Satan thing. Now, I know you said, you didn't care if he was a real Satanist or anything, but I guess my question to you is, if he did belong to a practice, or he practiced Satanism with a group of people, where they might have worshipped somewhere, did you at all ever get any letters, any threats, or anything from possible Satanists?
No.
Okay.
No. I do get, on Instagram, I get people that write in that are still worshipers, or I don't know, they're a part of his
Loyal.
fan club. They're loyal to him. And I get letters saying, you should be dead. Why is Richard dead instead of you? They call him Richie. Why you should be dead? Why'd you do this to Richie? You're nothing but. And they get nasty.
Right.
And I laugh, you know, because somebody who's sitting there writing all this stuff. Really?
Right.
You know, I'm 72 years old, retired, making an income, doing this, and you, what are you doing? You know, you can't tell me you've got a well-paying job, you're smart, you're laying back smoking your dope, doing whatever you're doing.
Right.
But I'm happy you're not.
Now, here's another thing that we talk a lot about in the show. We do this show like every other week, so twice a month. And a lot of times we talk about energy, that there are people that give up good energy and that people give up bad energy. Did you at any time and point ever feel anything like that from Richard?
No.
Okay.
Because Richard was nothing more than human to me.
Okay.
That's all he was. He's just another human.
Okay. In the documentary, I wanted to ask you about, you had said that at one point you had gotten a little scared, and maybe correct me if those are the words you used, where you thought that there was a possibility this guy was going to levitate?
No. What happened was I said, for a millisecond, not even a full second, I'm talking to him and understanding in my job, I'm playing with his anxiety level. I want to see where I can ask questions. So I'm asking him other questions, not pertaining to the case, but I'm seeing how high I can take him, see where he doesn't want to talk. And at one point in time, I'm talking about personal family life with him, involving his sister. And so as I'm talking to him, he had his head on the table and his hands are down, and he's listening, but he's not looking at me. And he starts going, and I know his anxiety level's going up. And I really feel that I've got him, and he's about to break. My partner is kneeing me on the inside under the table, and I don't know if he's telling me back off him or keep it up. He's getting ready to break.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when I got to his sister, his hands started coming up. And they didn't come up. He didn't sit up. He didn't flip the table. His hands started coming up. And for a millisecond, I'm sitting there saying, if this guy levitates, I'm out of here. I've been shot at, I've been stabbed, I've been in fights, but I can't fight somebody floating around a room. And so for a millisecond, and then I said, the guy's just human.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, Rich, I tell you what, ready to take a break? You hungry? He said, yeah. I said, all right, we'll get you something to eat. And we walked outside. My partner said, why'd you had him? You know, you had him going. Right. And I said, well, we never talked about what the knee under the table meant.
Right.
You know, so I didn't know whether to stop, to keep going, what to do. So I figured if I got him up once, I can get him back up there again. I felt by this time I was confident in what I was doing.
Right. Was there ever any time where he possibly tried to threaten you or did threaten you?
Rich?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So you guys had somewhat, I don't even want to use the word relationship, but you guys had somewhat of a cool conversation whenever, like.
It was a relationship that was on almost like a professional level. I knew he was a killer. He knew I was a cop. And I couldn't do anything about him being a killer. He couldn't do anything about me being a cop. It was just treating each other with a little respect. That's all it was.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that?
No.
Okay. Because I know trial starts, I believe, January 31st, 1989. Trial starts 3.5 years after his arrest. Now, he's accused of 43 crimes, 13 murders, many counts of robbery and rape. Now he's going to court, and this is what tripped me out, because after a while he let his hair grow out, he's wearing glasses, he's wearing a suit, he's walking in like a pimp, at least from the footage that I saw, and he's got groupies.
Yeah.
He's got groupies.
Some people from Ante LaVey,
Anton LaVey, yes.
There were some of the Satan worshipers going in there. See.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He also had some very beautiful women, including attorneys, going in there want to see him.
He was a
Attorneys.
celebrity in his own name.
Now, again, if you had to guess, what do you think it is about murderers that attracts women that want to?
I wouldn't even guess. I don't know. I have no idea.
We tried talking about that. Like, what do you think it is? Because Charles Manson got married in jail. You know, these are people that we want to say, if I ever saw him, I'll kill his ass. You know, I don't want nothing to do with him. I wouldn't even sit next to him. I wouldn't even shake his hand. And then you got women that like, I love you. I want to marry you.
You'd have to talk to them. I have no idea.
Okay.
There were much prettier women that he could have married that didn't marry him. He picked, like the ugly duckling out of the group.
That one woman, her name's Doreen, right?
Yes,
his
Doreen.
wife. Did you ever get a chance to speak with her?
No.
No, you didn't want to.
No, I had no reason to speak to her. She came in out way after the fact. I didn't care. You know, I told his family I'd never ask him anything about Rich. You know, I told the daughter, his sister, and the mother.
Right.
You know, here's who I am. You know, I know you love your son. I know you're here for them. I said, I will never, ever ask you a question about your son. That isn't something very personal. You're here for that. If you have questions of me, feel free to ask, but I suggest go through his attorney first, because I don't want the attorney getting mad at you or thinking that I'm trying to do anything. I'm just here to help. And then after the conviction, I even had cops go down and look after the house, because they were having some trouble at his parents' house. You know, people didn't like him now.
Okay. At any time, did the parents ever ask you anything?
No.
Okay. Okay. I just have to ask, did the parents ever think that he was innocent?
I really don't know. I can't say. I know that the dad tried to lie for him, and it didn't work because we had done our homework, you know. And,
Yeah.
his dad said he hadn't seen Richard, and the last time he saw Richard was in June when he left, I believe is what he said. And that would have, if he was over there in June, before that, he wouldn't be available for some of the murders out here.
Right.
And so I started looking through old newspaper articles, and I found an article written by a reporter in El Paso, Texas, that interviewed him the day after his arrest. And the dad said, I haven't seen Richard in 6 months. And he hasn't been around here. Well, now Dad's up there testifying that Richard was in El Paso during this time. So I called up El Paso, tried to find the reporter. They said, oh, he left. He's in Miami now. So I called up Miami, called information, said, give me the 2 biggest newspapers you have in Miami. Called up the first one. I said, please don't think I'm crazy. I'm looking for a reporter. I'm a cop. I just want to talk to him. And she says, oh, he's right here. You want to talk to him right now? So they put him on the phone, and I said, do you remember interviewing Dad the day after? He said, oh, yeah, I remember. I'll never forget that one. You want a vacation in L.A.? So we flew him up to L.A., put him on a stand, took care of him, and sent him back. And it just blew Daddy right out of the water.
Wow.
So everything that Daddy said was gone.
So now that it's established that, you know, how many murders that he's convicted of and everything else, you know, from robbery to breaking and entering and all that, is there any other crimes now that all that was finished that you wish he would have been convicted for? Or you're like, dang, I wish, you know, I know he did this.
No. Very satisfied. You know, we had I called them kitty cases. We had some of the kids. I think we had originally filed like 4 or 5 kitty cases. And we decided to dismiss them in the interest of justice because there was no reason. We already had 14 murders. How many times can you sentence a man to death?
Right. Yeah.
How much time are you going to get? So it was only going to hurt. We were only going to put the little kids and their families through
More
anguish.
pain, yeah.
Right.
And we didn't want to do it, so we dismissed them in the interest of justice. So it didn't matter to us.
One more thing. Was there any specific case that, I know children are a very sensitive topic. Was there any of the cases that he was convicted of that just struck you, hit you hard, and you like, it made you push harder to get this guy?
No. Pushed on all of them. All of them. You know, I don't care if it's a 6-year-old kid or if it's an 85-year-old lady.
Right.
Murder's murder. And so they all get treated the same.
Right.
We had passion at one point in time, since my partner had worked on the Hillside Strangler, and since he had been through this already, I asked him, I said, is it wrong for me to want somebody else to die? Because I wanted another piece of evidence. I needed to get this. And he says, no, that's the feeling you get, you know. And we worked it. So, no, they all got the same.
So in November 7th, 1989, judge sentenced him, if I'm correct, sentenced him to death gas chamber?
Well, that's all we had then.
Okay.
We only have the gas chamber.
Okay. And then it says when he was convicted, and you correct me if this is true, because I got this part off the internet.
I don't want to make a mistake. I don't remember if it was a gas chamber or by lethal injection.
Okay.
But he just sentenced him to death. He doesn't determine how. It's determined up.
Okay. And this part I had gotten off the internet, and the reason why I looked for it, because growing up I had heard this, and I don't know if this is true. It says when he was convicted, he shot it at the jury. You make me sick, I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all. after the judge imposed a sentence of death, Richard Ramirez said, "Big deal. Death always win with the territory." See you in Disneyland, Richard Ramirez married.
Okay, two separate issues.
Okay.
What you said at first, you
That make me sick.
yeah, all that stuff. He actually read that. He had it. He read that. He had prepared it himself.
Okay.
So if you read that again, if you ever see it, you can see it's well written. And when he's walking out, you walk out of the courtroom, they have a bus that's in an enclosed cage. So the bus is parked in there and they close, so nobody can run out of the cage. And as he's coming out, shackled at wrist and his feet, that's when he says, "So what? Death always went to the territory. Hail Satan and see all at Disneyland," I think is what he said.
So
Because that's what the winning quarterbacks say.
yeah.
See you in Disneyland.
Yes. So I believe now. Let me get my notes correct. Big deal. Okay. And then Richard Ramirez was married a female admirer, and I believe he was married in 1996.
I don't know.
Okay. When he was convicted, I had read that you and your partner went to go visit him one last
Yes.
time. How did that conversation go?
We visited him probably about 4 days straight. It was fine. We talked openly. Even talked prior to that. He wouldn't cop out to any of the kids. We finally got to cop out to some of the kids, and I told him, I said, "No skin off my nose, Rich. It just is. We got you. Made him on a case in Phoenix, elderly couple, but they didn't die, and he left them for dead, but they didn't die. And I said, "What about this case in Phoenix, in Arizona?" He said, "No, that wasn't me." I said, "Oh, come on, Rich. Brother Ray Charles could have figured this one out. The same, where's the money? Where's the jewelry? Shut up, bitch. Don't look at me." I said, and he goes, "Oh, yeah, huh?"
Wow.
So we talked very openly.
Wow. Okay. Other than that, anything else? Because I'm pretty much.
Were you surprised of how long he lasted in prison? Did you think that he would get whacked, for all the crimes that he did?
They had him under pretty much death row. Nobody get to him. They wouldn't let him out in the yard with everybody else in general population. So I understood that him and Peterson, the guy that killed his wife and the little baby, I understand that they got into it one time, but they didn't have a chance to get to him.
Okay. Somebody has sent these in, actually texted to me, it's a good friend of mine, and he said, "Do you believe the case could have been solved without the shoe print?"
I don't know. It's. I had the shoe print. I can't tell you what would happen if we didn't have it. I'm happy we had it.
With today's technology that what we have today, I would like to believe that he would have been caught a lot sooner. Do you believe?
Not necessarily, no, because you still have all these different modes of death.
Okay.
The different operator there. It's not that easy. It's not like watching Dateline to do this stuff.
Right.
There's an awful lot of time, an awful lot of what they used to call shoe leather. And you got to talk to hundreds of people out there. It's not as easy as you see on TV.
Right.
And to document all this stuff and get it together, it's not an easy feat. We didn't have DNA. Cops now to tell me today, because I was just in Miami last week, and they're saying, "Man, how'd you solve this case?" Because they've got all the modern technology.
Yeah.
But modern day killers, they're staying up with technology as well. Murder is an irrational act followed by acts of rationality. You kill somebody, that's irrational. Now, I got to get away with it. That's rational. Now he's trying to do everything he can. So, killers out there today, they're aware of social media. They're aware of everything. They're aware of DNA. They're aware of drones. They're aware of a lot of stuff. So they just got to find different ways to commit their crimes.
Before he saw himself, well, let me go back to Feinstein, I'm not sure, Diane. Before that, they released his shoe, the gun, and the car. Do you think he knew that you guys were on his tail already?
I don't know. That he'd have to say it. I know he got rid of that stuff. He changed shoes. He went to what was called a stadia. It was concentric circles.
One last one here. I know he had no patterns, and I think if I can use this word, possibly that's what threw you guys off. That maybe think maybe this is not the same guy because he didn't have a pattern. It's almost like most serial killers have somewhat of a pattern. Like
Let me correct you on one thing.
Yes, sir.
They didn't think it was one guy. I thought it was one guy.
Okay.
I was saying it's one guy.
Now, why would you think that they were saying it's not one guy? And please share, why did you think it was one guy?
Because I had taken, aside from everything else, all the investigative stuff that I've done in the department, I took 2 semesters of advanced criminal investigation pertaining to sex crimes.
Okay.
And sex crimes helped me identify some things like seeing the fear without shooting him right away. She could have come up behind Maria Hernandez and popped her in the head. He could have did the same thing to Dale Okazaki, could have done the same thing to Silene Yu, yet he didn't. Why? Because he wanted to see that's a sign of a sexual deviant.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. I saw that. Unless you studied sex crimes,
Yeah.
the regular guys didn't understand it. And nobody knows the case like the investigator that's working it. But it's all circumstantial.
Yeah.
It's a theory. That's all it is. It's a theory. And so because he was kidnapping kids and killing adults, nobody's done that. Girls, boys, nobody's done that in criminal history.
Yeah.
So that's why there have been no copycats.
Yeah. One last thing. KNBC was quoted for saying this is the biggest case in the world. Would you say still was the biggest case in the world, or was OJ the case of the century?
No.
There's, this is a big, it was a high profile case by the difficulty, by the method of operation that he did, by the numbers he did. It's a case, it's a high profile case. But there have been other serial killers going around,
Yeah.
and it's maybe big in their eyes. I don't know why they said that. I don't know if it is or isn't. I don't follow all cases.
Right.
So I don't know where they get their information from.
I think one thing that you're saying is very important for people to understand, and I think it's a really significant and big case because at the time there wasn't as many cameras. It was randomness. The method of killing people was just random and sporadic. And it's hard. Like, what technology did you guys have? You're not doing blood stuff. Fingerprints is barely on the brink of being what it is, and it's a hard case to solve. And good thing the community of East Los Angeles got together and chased this guy down.
Well, yeah, but the community, not to diminish, because we sat on the board to find out who's going to get money. We made sure people got money that were actually involved and helped out.
Right.
Right there. But it wasn't the community. Remember, I said in the beginning, they didn't know who they had.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
This was just a guy that was entering their neighborhood. And they saw a neighbor having problems trying to do something to his wife.
Right.
So they just helped out.
Right.
Which would have happened in any neighborhood.
Right.
I just can't imagine neighbors sitting around saying, "What's the screaming of?" Just a neighbor getting her ass kicked.
In today's time, everybody would have just been like this, right?
They'd have been videoing it. The one thing when you say that, the one technology that we do have now is security cameras and Ring.
Yes.
There are more cameras around houses, so you might be able to see somebody running, by or seeing a glimpse of somebody. That may be it, but that's really not that advanced technology. People start buying them more.
All good. Alice, go ahead and put the numbers up. We got about 20 minutes tops. We got to take some calls. And I'm asking everybody, before you start calling, please have your question ready. Don't call and waste time and, give us your theory. Just have a question, please. Address to Gil Carrillo. And, hopefully he has the right answer for you. So once again, we'll give you guys an opportunity to speak to him. Let's keep it pushing. The number's up. Let's see who will be the first caller. Okay, make sure you turn up the volume on the headphones. Everything good? Okay. Okay, here we go. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Hi, this is Caesar from Paris.
How you doing, Caesar? What's your question?
Hi, how you doing, Mr. Tonier? Gil, thank you for coming on this podcast. Actually, this is probably the only podcast so far that is usually just on one item. There's no conspiracies today, but it's a great show so far, Mr. Gil. I got 2 questions if I can. What's up,
Let's
Marvelous?
stick to one, my brother.
Okay, here we go. While you were in Vietnam in your early days, one of the conspiracies in Vietnam were that there were a lot of illegal Mexicans in the war. Okay, do you know anything about that, or can you touch base on that?
Well, I can't say that there were a lot of illegal Mexicans. I can say there was a homicide investigator that had gone to college in Mexico, came across the border over here, and had been deported 3 times. After the 3rd time being deported, he joined the Army, United States Army. He went to Vietnam and fought like everybody else, which made him a naturalized citizen. And so they made him a citizen. When you go into the armed forces like that and you're in combat, I guess they can do that. So they wouldn't be illegal. And I thank him. I thank him for what he did.
Yeah. Thank you, caller.
Okay, absolutely, and thank you for your service too. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And a second question, Mr. Gil, you interviewed Richard Ramirez multiple times, right?
Yes, that is correct.
After also, okay. Now, did you even catch like as the time went on, the further away, did you feel any remorse from him, or was he really believing in that he's a righteous satanic worshiper? Did he have any remorse?
He had remorse over.
He's not high anymore. Or?
This is the only thing he had remorse for. He had remorse over one teenage girl that he felt sorry about doing, and he felt sorry because on one house he let out a puppy and he doesn't know what happened to the puppy. That's the only thing he was sorry for. So there's for your remorse.
Thank you, caller. Greatly appreciate your question, brother.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let's keep it pushing. You guys, we just want to stick straight to the question, please. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Yo, what's up? It's Benny. I'm from Texas, but originally from Paso Robles. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to, this guy, this detective right here, he's historic, and my wife, she's all into the true crime and a bunch of the serial killers. So, I just kind of wanted to take advantage of this time to be able to speak to a legend in this, in this genre.
Well, thank you very much for your very kind words. I'm just regular folk. I got the case. It worked out well, and it was not just me. I was surrounded by good people, family that gave me support when they did this, so it was a group effort. But I certainly thank you for your kind words. And one more thing before I go, you left Paso Robles. They got some good wine up there, brother. Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Shout out to you, Tony, and shout out to you, Marvelous.
Muchas gracias, carnal. Have a blessed night. Let's keep it pushing, you guys. I like short ones like that. Let's keep them like that. Straight to the point. Okay. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
I'm calling from Portland, Oregon.
What's up, my brother? How you doing? You got a question for Gil Carrillo?
No, I actually had I wanted to tell you about the, how you guys talked about the paralyzed.
About the
night.
Oh, I think
I'm sorry, the what?
he wants to talk about the sleep paralysis.
You know what, brother? I would love to talk about that, but you know what? Right now, this night is dedicated to the Night Stalker, was dedicated to Gil Carrillo. So if you got any questions for Gil, please answer. If not, get us next time, brother.
All right, no problem.
Thank you, man.
Shout out to you guys from Portland, Oregon.
Thank you. Let's keep it pushing. Okay, let's go. Let's see. Okay. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
My name is Jimmy Cabs. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
What's up, my brother? How you doing, man? You got a question for Gil?
Good. Yes, I do. Mr. Carrillo, I have 2 questions for you, actually.
Make them quick, my brother.
From 1970 to 1990, the Stanford Research Institute in pseudoscience was experimenting with far distant viewing operatives. Did you at any time in your investigation seek out these far distant viewing operatives, or what they're also referred to are mediums, psychics, etc.?
No.
Second question.
No, we
you had
didn't.
any-
We're interested in that would be as a last resort. As long as we have physical evidence and people to talk to, that's what we have to go after.
I was aware that in the documentary you had the joint task force. Was the FBI Quantico science division involved in the investigations with their profilers?
They came out here from their behavioral science unit. They were criminal profilers. They came out, but in all honesty and fairness to them, they said it was a crapshoot because criminal profiling is based on criminal history, and nobody in criminal history had ever been documenting what we were alleging. And one of those criminal profilers, still to this day, is a very good friend of mine, retired FBI agent Bill Hagmeyer, who I served with him. He was the executive director of the International Homicide Investigators Association. I served on the board for a short time with him.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Hopefully that answers your
Mike.
question.
Can I throw one out real quick? Real quick.
Real quick, brother.
Did you at any time seek out occult researchers or practitioners in regards to the symbols found at the crime scene to get some sort of clarification or definition, etc.?
No. No, we didn't.
Okay. Mr. Courier, thank you for taking the time to answer my question.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, you guys just keep it pushing. Let's stick to one question, please. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
The app sign. Hi, this is Michelle from Montebello.
How you doing, Michelle from Montebello? You have a question for Gil?
No, it's about the Night Stalker.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I don't know. I commented a couple of times, but yeah, I was about 5 years old when he like broke in our house. No joke. My mom woke up in the middle of the night, I know, like, long story short, and she heard a noise coming from our kitchen window. So she woke up my dad, and he, like, went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife out of the drawer and his boxers and everything, and he was like, he saw this guy in a black beanie just trying to, like, open our window, and it's, like, an old school house, like, very old windows. He was having a hard time, like, getting the window open, so he saw my dad, and, like, my dad had the knife in his hand, and he bounced, but my dad, like, stuck his head out the window, and he just said he saw this guy running down our driveway. Like, we lived in a back house.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just remember he was wearing all black with a black beanie. And so the cops came, they were looking around after that. My parents called the police. They were kind of scared and hesitant to, like, come in because they didn't know if they were, like, paranoid, I feel like.
Yeah.
Well, according to my parents, because I was only 5 at the time. And so that same night, my mom watched, we couldn't sleep. My mom put the news on. That very night, like a couple of hours after, that same night, he murdered a girl on the next block from us on Alhambra Avenue, right where, like, Mark Keppel High School is, where that bridge goes over, at Park Ray Apartments, some Asian girl, a couple of hours after somebody tried to break in our house.
Wow.
So that had to have been him.
Well, I highly doubt if it was him. And the only reason I can explain, that would have been the only murder that occurred on Alhambra Avenue was March the 17th. And 2 hours prior to March the 17th, he was killing Dale Okazaki. Killed Dale Okazaki at 10:40 at night. Then he went ahead a couple hours later and killed Silin Yu. He was a busy man that night.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, caller.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that. We greatly
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you. Have a blessed one. Sorry if I have to cut you guys off, but you know what? We only got about 10 more minutes, so I got to respect this man's time. So let's keep it pushing. Caller, your name or where are you calling from?
It's Caesar from Paris.
Caesar from Paris. How you doing?
How you doing? I got part 2 of question, Mr. Gil. Now, of course, you went through your career after Richard Ramirez, but did that particular case wear a toll on you? You know, you carry yourself very professional, but did you ever take that work home? Did it affect you?
No, not at all. My family, the realities are my family knew very little of the Night Stalker case and really didn't know that much until they saw the documentary. And I did apologize to my wife because at that time, her job was the house and the kids. My job was catch the killer. And it wasn't until I watched the documentary that after it was over, I apologized and asked her for forgiveness because I was never afraid. I had a gun. I had partners with guns. We were out on the streets. I know how to take care of myself. I never factored in, she doesn't carry a gun. I wasn't there. She was there with the kids. She moved out for a while. It was very frightening for her. So, but it didn't, I never carried it home, and I didn't, that was work.
Awesome, bro. Thank you for calling, man. Thank you for calling. Have a blessed one. If you guys stick to one call, one question, please. One call, one question. Caller, your name or where you calling from?
What's up?
Okay, let's keep it pushing. You guys got to turn down your TV when you guys call. We get feedback, you guys, okay? Caller, your name or where you calling from?
One call. Hey, how's it going? Good evening, my man. I'm just trying to get into your podcast right now. As I see that the detective Gil is could relate with what it is as I was a kid, brother. Turn on your TV.
Please turn down your TV, bro. We can hear the feedback.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man.
Okay, let's make this quick, brother. What's your question?
Yeah, the only reason why I'm trying to call is that I'm really getting into your podcast, brother. You know, and I'm trying to see, you know, at the same time you're what the title of this podcast is, and I'm just getting into it, brother. Sorry for the inconveniences it costs, you know, as I'm trying to sound a little confused, but at the same time I could relate a little bit of this story. I'm out of the city of East Los Angeles, brother, you know, but I could recall the time where, you know, when I was a kid. In 1985, man, I was about 6 years old. But I recall when they captured Richard Ramirez. I was a kid, like I said, you know, I was in elementary by the name of Fort Boulevard School, you know. But at the same time, I recall they closed down my block, brother, you know. And I don't know if the detective could recall that time where, you know, the investigation was off of Brannick Avenue, you know, where actually one of his brothers by the name of Ruben that I recalled as a kid and later on knew of, you know, by the neighborhood, you know, of everybody that you know, talked about him, you know, he used to panhandle, you know, and at the same time, you know, I recall being a kid, but at the same time, you know, they closed down the street and, you know, the investigation was on. The whole news was there. I was a kid, of course, being a kid, I wouldn't know what the difference is of that.
Yes.
But my parents would be like, you know, métete a la casa, ¿me entiendes? Y
Yeah.
vámonos a la casa, no hay que al mismo tiempo, mind your own business, no te metas con nadie,
Right.
está lo que está pasando, pero
Yes,
al
sir.
mismo tiempo.
Do you have a
métete
question,
a la
my bro?
casa. Nos vamos a meter. Yes, sir. You know, but I don't know if you recall the time with the detective, you know, when they closed down Brannick Avenue, brother,
Do you
know,
recall
right
that?
there off of Union Pacific, you know.
Unfortunately, on the day of his arrest, August 31st, 1985, when all that went down, I never went out to Hubbard where he got arrested. I never went to Brannick. I never did any of that. I went straight to Hollenbach Station where he was being detained, right. And the rest of the day was spent working with him and then back in my office. I never went out to the streets, so I couldn't answer your question.
Awesome, brother. Thank you, man. Thank you. We have to let you go simply because time is precious and we got about 5 more minutes, so let's go. Caller, your name or where you calling from?
Hey, how you doing? This is Richard from East Los.
What's up, Richard? You got a question?
Yes, hey, buenas noches, Marvelous, Gil. I have a question regarding the incidents and everything that happened, all the murders. So, Gil, did you ever feel the vibe when you went into a murder scene, you know, that was Richard? Or when he was in jail, did you ever hear his cellmate say that there was a different type of vibe when he was there?
No, he's no different. All he was human, brother. And you go into a murder scene and everything goes away. You just investigate. You're looking, you're studying, and it's very, very much of a mental game. And so that's what you did. So you never feel any vibe. And he's a suspect, he's a killer, and you're a cop trying to find him.
Okay. But I guess what he's trying to, I guess you would be able to understand that people that are not cops, if they see this guy, they're going to like, oh, this motherfucker looks evil. Because there's a lot of people that would say, I looked into his eyes and he had the devil's eyes. And
Beauty's eye in the eye of the beholder. Sophie Dickman testified that he was quite the handsome young man. She was a surviving sexual assault victim. So when he put on that look with his hair in the back and the black suit and the shades, he looked like somebody that was dealing dope in Miami. He looked like a Miami dope dealer.
Yeah, or a rock star or something. All good, man. Thank you for that call. Let's keep it pushing. We got time for possibly 3 more phone calls, tops. Let's go. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Good evening, Tony. I'm
What was that?
calling from the Bay Area.
What's up, my brother? You got a question?
Yes, sir. I want to congratulate and speak to Detective Gil Carrillo and just give him his respects, because I want to let him know that his career and everything that he accomplished, you know, he has left a very positive mark for us as a people, for our Chicano. It's very inspirational. And I was listening to his interview and reading about him, and I know that he moved up the ranks, but I wasn't aware that he went to Vietnam, so I want to thank him for his service. And I want to have one question.
Yes.
My last name is also Carrillo, so I want to ask where his family origin from in Mexico.
My mother is from Chihuahua. My dad is from Jerez, Zacatecas. But the reality is, his last name got changed. You know, when you go through from Mexico into the United States, he was a kid when he came across, and it's one of those. He was Evaristo Miramontes de Carrillo. That was his mother's maiden name. So when he got over here, paperwork got messed up, and it just left it as Carrillo. But he is from Jerez.
Oh, good, man.
Thank you very much for your kind words, brother. Thank you very much. Means an awful lot.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go. We got one more phone call, and then it's a wrap. Okay, let's go. Caller, your name, where you calling from? This is the last call.
Steve-O from Pueblo, Colorado.
What's up, my brother? What's your question?
My question is, what particular strengths does a good detective need to do the job right? You know, they got to have some kind of strength. I was just wondering, what would they need?
You need to have 2 things that are most important. You have to have the ability to listen. When people talk, you can't be formulating your next question. You have to hear what they say, watch their lips, just watch it come out of their mouth, pay attention and listening. If you're worried about, as soon as he starts saying something or she starts saying something, you know he's lying, and you're sitting there saying he's a liar, and that you're not listening, and then as soon as he finishes talking, you say you're a liar, because you're already formulating what you're going to tell him. That's no good. You have to be a listener. The second thing is you have to have an infinite amount of understanding, and that is understanding why he did the things that he did. You don't condone them. You just have to understand them. Why did he rape that lady? Because sex meant something to him, so that you understand it. Do you condone it? Absolutely not. And if you can do that and have the ability to document in writing what you just went through and what he just said, if you treat people the way you'd like to be treated, you'll get a lot more out of it, and that's what it takes to be, I hope, that's what it takes to be a good one.
Awesome, man. Thank you, brother. Greatly appreciate it. And that was the last call. So now, Marvelous, before I ask my last question to end the show, is there anything you want to ask or add?
No, just thanks for his insight, his input, and for taking us back, you know, letting us astral project, and while he's articulating everything that happened. You know, people assume a lot of things, and you know, they're not the ones there trying to solve the case or trying to get into the mind of a killer. There's a lot that goes into, you know, the stuff that they do to solve these cases. So respects in that aspect.
Thank you.
Gil, is there any question that you look for that they never ask?
What's my astrological sign? No, no, I have no other question. You know, I just answer questions. You know, people ask.
Like, do you ever think, like, how come they never asked me this? Like, I'm waiting for
No, they're just so many varied questions. The one I get, I don't know, it must be on the internet someplace. People ask all the time, does he smell? You know, did he really smell like a goat? Did he smell like this? Did he smell like that? You know, and no, you know, when I interviewed him, you know, he didn't smell. You know, when he's killing people, when he was doing that, he was wearing these black clothes. And it's just like going into a locker room at a high school. You know, your football practice, you take off the T-shirt, you put it in the locker, and you leave it in there. They stink.
Yeah.
Well, he was doing that. He's putting them in a bag and leave it in. They'd stink. And they had blood all over them. So they'd stink. Not necessarily him. I don't know how hygienic he was, but he didn't smell when we got him.
Did he ever visit you in your dreams?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw him. Nothing. I used only a couple of times where it was ugly, you know, it just, and it was always up in San Francisco. And he gets away, and I'm trying to shoot him, and my gun won't work. And he's just laughing at me. So that was a concern for a while. We found some footprints, not the Avias, but we went to Mission Viejo. When I came back, we found footprints around my house. And it turned out to be, it looked like the Stati, which was a shoe he was using in the inn. And when he was in custody, he was telling the jail deputies that he knew where I lived. But, you know, so be it. I ain't worried about him now.
Yeah. Other than that, any shout-outs, Marvelous?
No, shout out to everybody that tuned in. Thank you for tuning in, and appreciate all of them.
Absolutely. Once again, I want to thank everybody on the live chat, everybody who liked, subscribed, commented, everybody who shared, everybody who, even if you disliked it, and even if you didn't get a chance to call, at least you tried. So we want to thank everybody for being a part of the show. And other than that, I want to thank once again Gil Carrillo for, just blessing us with his time, for being here. I know he likes to say, hey, I'm human, I'm just like you. Nah, bro, but you're like Superman. So, you know what I'm saying? So we want to give you a big time shout out.
I just want to tell you, a burrito's kryptonite to me, brother.
Okay, there you go. And I also
thank you all for all your kind remarks. Thank the listeners out there for their kind remarks. It's been an honor and a pleasure to come down here, be invited and be on your podcast, and I hope things will go well for you.
Awesome. I want to give a shout out to the man who made this possible. He reached out to me after hearing your name on the podcast. His name's Raul Carrillo. He goes on Instagram at Raul Arts. Raul Arts on Instagram. So once again, Raul Carrillo, thank you very much.
A very talented man,
yes,
Mr. Carrillo is. He does brilliant work, masterful work.
Yes. So my last shout out is to the Hip Hop Jedi. I want to give a shout out to Norbert for being a part of our team. I want to give a shout out to my boy Alex Cervantes, to my son B. Scallons for helping me promote this, and then Michael Santana for being here in the studio with us. So, and everybody else, much love, much respect. See you guys here back in 2 weeks with me and Marvelous Inc. Much love. Carrillo, thank you. We're out.